Hey everybody, welcome to Super Texters with me, your host, Gil Harmon. I am the Super Texter. This is my tutorial series where I give you some of my top tips and tricks through various different programs such as Photoshop, After Effects, Adobe Premiere Pro, Lightroom. You know, we've dabbled in Final Cut X before. As you know, I used to use Final Cut 7, so I used to do tutorials on that. If you've seen some of my older videos, then you will have seen those. But today we are going to be doing a Photoshop tutorial. You've come to this video because you are no doubt in need of some help. You know, you're working on a project of some kind. This could be an animation, could be a video, it could be, you know, anything, any kind of project, and you have thought to yourself, oh, I don't know how to do that. Well, don't fear, because Gil Harmon is here and I know exactly how to help. So yes, I'm using Photoshop CC today. You yourself might be using an older version or the same version. You know, you might be using Creative Cloud yourself. You might be using Photoshop CS6. You might be using Photoshop CS5. You might be using Photoshop CS4. You know, you might be using Photoshop CS3. You might be using Photoshop CS2. You know, so you might even be using one of the older versions, Photoshop 7, even older than that perhaps. But as I said, today I'm going to be using Photoshop CC. This tool I'm going to be teaching you how to use is applicable in most versions of Photoshop. This has been a thing that is across the board, a very well-known tool that is very helpful, but some people just don't know exactly how to use it. So I'm going to be teaching you today how to use it. So what you're going to want to go ahead and do is open up your Photoshop, and I'm going to be teaching you how to use the shape tool. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Gil, Mr. Harmon, why would I use a shape tool when I could just draw the shape myself? Well, if you don't have access to a graphics tablet, such as like a Wacom Bamboo or a Cintiq or an Intuos, you might be thinking, well, I can't draw it with a mouse. I can't draw shapes with a mouse. That's silly. So you would be right to be thinking, I'm going to need access to some kind of a shape tool, and Photoshop does indeed have access to a shape tool. So I'm basically going to be teaching you how to use the shape tool. Now, the thing with the shape tool is that it creates a vector, which means that it doesn't lose quality if you choose to scale it up at some point. If you've seen my tutorial on vector art, then you will probably already have an understanding of this, but if you've not seen any of that before, then don't fear, I'm going to be teaching you how to use the shape tool. I've used the shape tool on many occasions in my time on projects. I've been doing animations in the past where I've needed a certain shape. You know, maybe I needed like a triangle or a circle or a square. You know, like a rectangle, a pentagon, an octagon, a dodecahedron, some kind of a shape. A shape. Did I say circle? I've needed circles in the past, and my go-to tool to use is the Photoshop shape tool, and it's super easy to use, super quick to use. You know, it can be done, in very quick time, so you don't waste too long. Because I think that is the key thing with projects, efficiency. You're in the heat of the moment. You're working on a project. The last thing you need is to spend ages working out, oh God, how do I do this? How do I do that? So that's why I would recommend personally using the shape tool. And I'm going to teach you how to use that. I think the first time I ever used the shape tool was, I might have been 20 or 21 years old. I think I was 20. I was 20 years old, and I was working on a project, and I thought, Gil, we're going to need some solid shapes here. And I looked up a tutorial for myself, because I didn't just magically figure this stuff out. I too have read up on tutorials. I've read lots of books on Photoshop and Illustrator. I've tried to get an understanding of how these programs work over the years. And I've basically learned that knowledge, and now I'm going to be passing that knowledge on to you. When I first used the shape tool, it was a project. I was in my 20s, I was at university, and I needed to know how to create a shape. So it was very simple, in fact, and I'm going to teach you how to do that now. So what you're going to want to go ahead and do is load up Photoshop, and for that you will need your computer to be in the kind of like switched on state. So if you're, you might be using a Mac, you might be using a PC. I'm not entirely sure what your system is. I'm currently running a PC with Windows 10, so this is Photoshop Creative Cloud on Windows 10. But Adobe, their products, brilliant products, I've got to say, span across the board. They're available on Mac OS, Linux, Windows, of course. So whatever system you're working on, you're going to want to make sure your computer is switched on. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. Sorry, so, different computers take different amounts of time to switch on, but I'm assuming by this point, I mean, you could just pause the video actually, whilst it turns on. So, okay, let's say your computer is on now and your Photoshop is loading, and Photoshop, depending on what kind of hard drive you have, whether it be a solid state hard drive or otherwise, it's going to open at various different times. Loading times are going to vary depending on your computer, depending how advanced it is. I personally have a solid state hard drive in my computer. I built it myself, so I was very particular about all the parts I wanted in my computer. And solid state hard drive for me, that was a no-brainer. I need my programs to open up lightning quick, and I thought to myself, you know what, Gil, we're going to need solid state for this baby. So I purchased one. I think it was maybe only about £180. It could be a Samsung one, I think. I'd have to reopen my computer to find that information out right now, but we do not have time for that. So what you're going to want to do is, once you've launched Photoshop, you are going to want to make sure that your mouse is plugged in as well, because unless you're using a graphics tablet, you're not going to be able to use your computer without a mouse. You might be using a laptop though. If you're using some kind of a MacBook or a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, or even a Windows laptop, a Razer laptop perhaps, which aren't as strong for, I would say, work in Adobe products. Razer do brilliant gaming laptops, but if you're going to be working in Photoshop, I would recommend personally maybe a MacBook Pro, maybe even an iMac if you're situated at a desk most of your days and you need that sort of power. That is also a good option. Or like myself, you could build your own PC, which actually isn't as daunting as you might think. I used to think, oh God, how do I build a PC? What, am I some kind of a scientist? I'm not. So once once you do some research online, you can easily find that kind of information out. So yes, if you've now loaded up your computer and you've got Photoshop in front of you and you have your mouse plugged in, unless you're on a laptop, which you could just use the trackpad, but sometimes using an external mouse is quite handy in these programs. So even if you are working on some kind of a laptop, I would recommend getting a wireless mouse, or even, wired mice. Is it mouses or mice? I think it's mice. Wired mice are, less common these days, but most laptops have Bluetooth built into them. So if you were to get yourself a Bluetooth mouse, that would be, that would be fine. That would work perfectly fine. I personally still use wired mouses. I still don't know. I still use them wired because I don't like replacing the batteries in wireless mouses or mice. What? I should have looked that up before the video. I'm currently using a Razer mouse, in fact, a wired Razer mouse with sort of an RGB kind of fluctuating colors. I just think it adds a nice ambience to the room, personally. So once you've got all that set up, you're in good shape. You're in real good shape now. And what you're going to want to go ahead and do is take your mouse in your right hand or left hand, depending you might be left-handed. I don't personally. I can't really use the mouse with my left hand. I have to use my right hand, but it's probably just because I'm right-handed. But whatever your dominant hand is, place that on the mouse, and then go ahead and select the shape tool, and then you just want to click and drag, and then there you go. You've got a shape. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if this was helpful to you in any way, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye!